So welcome. This is the agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about why we're here, a little bit about background, a little bit about what's happened, and then try and get into some solutions and some questions. And all these people here have said that they will answer questions and help out. There is an elephant in the room that West Sussex officers, who are the people who are the paid employees of West Sussex in the education department, have declined, well, been ordered not to come actually, which is surprising because when we've had similar meetings before, they have turned up. They are the experts, whether you like the decisions or not. They know every last syllable and detail of it. Everyone, and I mean everyone's put a lot of pressure on them the last week. I know these guys have, I know I have, I know everyone else has, and they've not been bending. So that is unfortunate, but they have provided some written answers, which some of you submitted questions in advance, and we've had them back today. We will be able to give them out. I think they're on a table over there, so we will be able to give them out and also refer to them in the meeting as well. So they are the kind of semi-silent voice in the room. But these guys' job as our political representatives is obviously to be the conduit between you as parents and the officers and the employees. And so I would strongly suggest that right now, these guys, whatever your political persuasion, these are your best friends because they are people who are going to be closest to getting any solutions out of this. Okay, so bit of housekeeping. If there is a fire, God forbid, very easy exit. There's all the fire exits on this side, and there's a meeting point at the board's cabin, I think, or something out the back. Is that right? Yeah. And then just one other thing I was going to just touch on was behaviour. So, like, I get it. You know, I've got young kids. It's a passionate issue. Everyone's very upset. Everyone's very disappointed. But we want to have a productive conversation tonight. So, this chap here is a psychologist called Carl Rogers, and he always talks about core conditions for good communication, and they are respect, empathy, and truth. So you can respect someone having a different opinion, you can do your best to understand where they're coming from, but also speak your truth. So it's, I think this, I feel this, and if all those things are present, then even if it's a difficult conversation, then generally good conversations are happening. So just a little, and actually, if all else fails, we have got a bouncer. Well, I'm not even joking. So yeah, just respect, empathy, truth. Thank you. So I've touched on this already, but meeting aims, explain the issues with this year's missions, highlight the issues for the coming years, discuss options for this year and future years. I'm going to try and not say much more for now, because like these two should, are in it, and they are you, and so they should do as much speaking as possible. So I'll hand over in a minute. In fact, right now. So thank you.
Thanks. Hello, welcome. Thank you for everyone coming. I'm so pleased that so many people are here, and we owe lots of thanks to lots of people for making this journey here tonight. So, thank you to everybody that has given your time, that has helped us out. This has been such an intense 2 weeks. I've never felt so emotional. First, it was the shock of finding out that your child hasn't got any of the schools that they've chosen, and neither have their friends. Then putting together our parents group, our campaign, being filmed for press interviews. I was not ready for that, and I mainly got Amy to do all of them. Preparing this presentation, I've had little sleep. I wake up with a racing heart every day. I've barely been able to eat, and I know that I'm not alone because many of our parents that are here have told me that they are also suffering the same. Our children have been confused, they've been placed into limbo, and even those that have got their choices have felt bad about sharing their happiness when so many of their friends are unhappy. We're going to hear a lot of numbers, stats and percentages this evening, But what we have to remember is that behind all of this data are children and families, a community, our community. And we'd like you to meet some of them first of all. We've put together a video of them. Many children wanted to be in this video, but some didn't or couldn't. But I want everyone here to see who we're talking about tonight and to see whose lives we're impacting.
Hi, my name is Layla. When I'm older, I want to be a teacher. I'm a kindness ambassador. I do ballet at the Shoreham Centre and I play netball at Shoreham Waves. I love netball and I've been doing ballet for years and it makes me feel happy. When I look around to Robert Woodard, I like that they had a dance studio and they did GCSE dance. I'm not just a number.
My name is Alexander Owen. I'm a sports captain. It involves putting equipment away and setting up other sports clubs. I really do enjoy that, yes. I play football for Southwick Rangers. I do that with lots of friends. I'd quite like to be a footballer when I'm older. I was actually most looking forward to pretty much everything where I was expecting to go at Sir Robert Woodard, but I didn't get there. I actually particularly like the sports facilities. They looked really nice. I am not just a number.
I'm Natalia Summers. I'm a kindness ambassador. When I'm older, I want to be a dancer. I do dancing at iStar Academy. When I look around Sir Robert Woodard, I have my brother, I've got loads of friends and family, and I love the local community around there. I was really excited when I looked at Sir Robert Woodard at the dance and drama. I'm not just a number.
My name is Miles Sova. At my school, I am an ambassador. Mostly just to keep the school going and help other people know what it's like going into secondary schools like we're doing at the moment. At the moment, I'm cleaning the hall, so sweeping up of what's been dropped. Yeah. In my community, I play in Lancing for basketball at Bears. I want to be a basketball player for the NBA. I'm not just a number.
Hi, my name is Luke Alexander. I'm a sports captain at my school. I want to be a footballer or a cricketer. I like to bowl people out. My dream is to play for Brighton and Hove Albion. I like the sports facilities at Sir Robert Woodard. I'm not just a number.
My name is Zachary Trigwell. I'm an eco ambassador at school. We get to take care of plants and water them. I play football after school. I'd like to be a chef or cook, so I really enjoy cooking. I like cooking biscuits and cakes. I am not just a number.
Frankie Mansell. When I'm old, I want to be a professional footballer, but if not, I would like to be a businessman. I would like to play for Liverpool FC, I'd like to play striker for them. I play for Shoreham FC and also do Ace Elite, which is an elite academy, and I've been invited to play for Chelsea Development Squad. I'm not just a number.
I'm Arthur van der Kalia. In my school, I am a student ambassador. I am corridor monitoring right now, and I tell people to be quiet and single file in the corridor. When I'm older, I would like to be a film editor. I edit clips of football and add effects to it and all of that. When I looked around Sir Robert Woodard, I liked that they did media studies, and for their GCSE option, they did photography, and I really enjoy photography. I'm not just a number.
Hi, I'm Albie. I am a sports leader. I sort out all the equipment that is left out at play, and on sports day we get to check down all of the scores of people. I enjoy football and basketball. When I grow up, I'd like to be a footballer or coach football. When I was looking around, I was most excited about the science at Sir Robert Woodard. The Bunsen burners, they were really satisfying and cool. I'm not just a number.
My name is Noah. I'm an ambassador, so I've got 3 jobs I rotate: cleaning up the hall, corridor duty, and also getting the Loughton property stuff. I was chosen it by my teachers and Mrs. Coughlin. It made me feel very happy and excited. I do football after school. When I'm older, I want to be a footballer because I love football and I'm very good at it. My team would probably be Brighton because it's our local team. Striker probably because that's my main position. I was most impressed with the science because we did flame testing and changed colours with the flames with wood. I'm not just a number.
My name is Luca. I am a kindness ambassador. We go around classes and playing with them
for golden time. I just like hanging around with people who I don't usually see that much. When I'm older, I'd like to be a football player, centre midfield. I'd like to play for Manchester United. I've supported them for as long as I can remember, really. When I looked around all the schools, I was most excited about playing all the sports there. And when I looked around Shoreham Academy, I saw that their pitch was really, really big. Having a really good pitch would be amazing for me. I am not just a number.
My name is Ollie Boyce. I was voted in as house captain by my house. I play for the cross-country, netball, football and the athletics team. I'd like to be an RAF pilot because it seems like a really fun job. There's always loads of action and you're protecting your country. I play for my local football team, Southwick Rangers. I also play for my cricket team. I really like playing sport because it calms me down, being part of a team and working together. I was really impressed with the sports facilities at Sir Robert Woodard because I really enjoy playing sports and that's a big part of my life. I am not just a number.
My name is Tasman Blydolan. I'm an environment ambassador. I water the plants in the school. And when I'm older, I want to be a drummer in like a rock band. Yeah, I play tennis. I'm looking forward to Robert Woodard because all the teachers were friendly. I'm not just a number.
We're not just numbers!
I hope you enjoyed that. I enjoyed making it with the children. So why are we here? Yes, why are we here? Thank you all so much for coming, by the way. My son Ollie was on that video towards the end, a future RAF pilot, possibly. He has high aspirations, along with all of the other amazing kids you've just seen. He was so excited about going to Sir Robert Woodard, and then obviously so disappointed when he found out that he didn't get his first, second, or indeed his third choice of secondary schools. Unbelievably, Ollie was one of 28 children at Swiss Garden School who did not get any of their 3 preferences. That's 37% of Swiss Garden's children. Over a third of the children from one school alone did not get any of their preferences. This is unprecedented, and it certainly isn't representative with West Sussex County Council's 97% first preference statistic. And every time we put our case forward to West Sussex, we have had this percentage thrown back at us. West Sussex is a huge county. A third of the children from one school is a huge proportion, and it's not acceptable. We very quickly discovered that it was not only Year 6 children from Swiss, and that there were many more children and families across Shoreham that this affected. And so our campaign group grew from 28 to 40 plus families overnight. And you can see the Shoreham schools listed there. Since finding this out, our parents have been very busy trying to get to the bottom of what and why this has happened, which Jade will talk about in a minute. We've formed a campaign group, started a petition, been in the news. We have done so much research and written a ridiculous amount of emails between us, many of which our local councillors here today and Tim, our MP, have been on the receiving end of. But we do thank you for all of your support and help with this. Fiona, a parent, is now going to share one of her emails.
Good evening. As I came out this evening, my daughter asked, "Will Rishi Sunak be there?" I said maybe later he'll arrive for the any other business. So I'm going to share with you an email I sent to Miss Becky Shaw, who's the Chief Executive of West Sussex County Council. Dear Miss Shaw, you are aware of the chaos of secondary school place allocation in West Sussex this year. I believe parents and children were left ill-prepared and ill-informed of the dire situation of the shortage of school places. Parents and children did not find out until Wednesday the 1st of March that they had been allocated to schools they had never heard of far from catchment. There is an unprecedented disbelief, anger and disappointment towards the West Sussex Council, particularly towards their poor communication and planning. On March the 1st, my daughter Jessica woke up to find she had not received a place at any of her school preferences in her catchment. It was a huge shock and disappointment after going through a process in which she had been very realistic. She loved all the schools that she visited. She saw good in all of those, but she knew she may not get her first or second preference and managed her expectations. However, after the initial disappointment of not getting a place at Shoreham Academy, Sir Robert Woodard or Stenning, she then faced the reality of a school allocated to a school 7 miles out of her catchment, currently improving, moving from an all-boys school to mixed. And I asked Miss Shaw, can I ask if you feel if all these considerations all at once are acceptable for an 11-year-old girl to deal with? Could I ask you to put yourself in my position as a parent, faced with all these issues with no prior warning? Preferences aside, could you acknowledge this is a lot to process? I'm sure you can appreciate the confusion and dismay at how places have been allocated this year. It is unprecedented, and children in West Shoreham and beyond have been completely let down. So I finish with the words of a former Prime Minister. This is a disgrace.
How did this happen? As Amy has said, and myself, we have lived and breathed this for 2 solid weeks. So let's walk you through what we have learned. And I did warn you earlier, there are going to be lots of numbers. There'll hopefully be some pictures in there somewhere, not just numbers and graphs. This is the catchment map for Shoreham Academy. And I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page for our catchment schools before we start going a bit deeper into the numbers. So Shoreham Academy, as many of you should hopefully know, is positioned in Southwick, and it captures all of Shoreham and Southwick, and the border stops at the edge of Lancing and the edge of Portsaid. What I didn't know when I was looking at the maps last year, when we were looking for our school, is that it actually extends all the way to the river and the sea. I had been told by so many parents that live in West Shoreham that hadn't got into Shoreham Academy that the border ended around Buckingham Park, that I actually started to believe that that was the actual catchment area. I didn't realise it went to the river until I went and looked on their website and found that it did, and I went to the talk and the head told us that as well. But what this meant is, because I live in West Shoreham, because I live quite close to the river, I'd already prepared myself, my son and my family that we're probably not going to get into that school. So then we've got Woodard's catchment area. It's on the opposite side of me. And the school, again, it's not in Shoreham, it's in Lancing, and it captures all of Lancing, Sompting and Shoreham. And this is the school that I did think we'd get into because I live closer to it, but not close enough, as it turns out. Remember that, because Amy is going to come back to that later on. If you live in West Shoreham, that is not a good place if you want your children to go to a Shoreham secondary school. So the numbers. PAN stands for the pupil allocation number, and it's the maximum number of pupil places which must be offered. There are PAN numbers for Year 7, so the whole Year 7 cohort, and there's also a PAN number for the total number of pupils in a school. Stenning's not actually one of our catchment schools, but as it is a faith school, anyone outside of catchment can apply. It is part of this story, but it is a small part, which I will come to. But we're going to mainly focus on our 2 catchment schools. So When I was looking at our catchment schools and we were going around and visiting them, I had a look at the data for the PAN, because this is published and you can go and find it, and had a look at how many children were offered places. So this data is for 2021. Because I knew that my son was in a bulge year, and I was concerned, is he going to get into one of these schools? I even went back further than 2021 as well. And I could see here that Sir Robert Woodard's PAN is 240. But they had actually that year taken 283 children. So they had taken children over their PAN. What I didn't know was, at that point, but I had since found out, was that they were able to take over their yearly PAN because they had space in their overall total pupils in the school, in that overall number. And I could see that, historically, Shoreham Academy didn't take over their PAN. So I thought that I had done my homework. I'd been smart, I'd been clever, I considered where we lived, I'd looked at the numbers. But I also spoke to the teachers when we were going around the schools. I asked people that I thought would know the answers to this. And I was told, we are building extra classrooms. Can you see this single-storey building over here? We're going to knock that down and turn that into a two-storey building. And then we will be able to take extra children. We will be able to take your children. I was saying to them, I live in Shoreham. I know this is a problem here. Al will talk more about this later. I've even seen emails from Tim last year reassuring parents, this is okay, your children will get a place. So when we visited, we had been told that Woodard would be increasing their PAN to take 300 children. And actually, this is actually in the council's planning school places document. They talk about taking on 2 extra classes. You'll see it will say 2 FE in their language. But I've got something to quote from that planning document. The strategic allocations across the district fall mainly within the Lancing area, and this will require careful monitoring of numbers to ensure timely expansion of the secondary provision in the school planning area to meet the continued increase in demand. That's in their own planning document. But that didn't happen. We've asked them why, and they've not answered. We've put in freedom of information requests, but we're only 14 days in this process and they get 20 days to send that back. So I haven't had them back. But when we do, I'm happy to share those responses. So this year, the classes weren't built, and Woodard have maintained their yearly PAN of 240 children. I understand that this is, you might want to talk about this later, but they can't take any extra children because their school is full. They have been taking extra children. They have filled up their total PAN for the whole school. And without those extra classrooms, they can't take them. And it's just unfortunate that at the same time, Stenning have happened to reduce their PAN from 390 down to 360. So we've lost another 30 places. So when the council are proud to share on TV that they have added a class to Shoreham Academy to ease pressure this year, they neglect to say that we also lost 2 classes from Woodard and 1 from Stenning this year. So we need to focus on bulge years, and we throw this term around quite a lot. But I also want to focus on it because, especially for people that have got children at Swiss Gardens, it's easy to mistake that the problem is this year because Year 6 are a bulge year. They're the only year in the school that have 3 classes instead of 2. We do have a bulge problem, but it's not just our year and it's not just our school. So this table shows the number of pupils at primary school in Lancing and Shoreham. Top one is Lancing, bottom one is Shoreham. 2016 is the year our children that are in Year 6 started in reception. The council's own definition is that a school planning area is deemed to be at full when capacity in use exceeds 95%. So they reserve 5% for children moving around schools. So you can see here that, you know, we are either full or we're over capacity. And looking at our 2016 year for Shoreham, it was 101%. This is not a secret, it's from their own planning documentation, and this has been known since our children started primary school in 2016. We can also look at the numbers for our catchment secondary schools for the past few years, and here we see the same problem. Not only are they full to capacity, they're over capacity. If we look at 2019 down to 2021, that is our secondary schools in Lancing Shoreham. That is Sir Robert Woodard and Shoreham Academy. So why hasn't anything been done about this? We've effectively lost 90 places in a bulge year on the back of bulge years. And this bulge year is not just a Swiss problem, it's across Shoreham. And it will continue for the next 4 years, at least the next 4 years. If nothing changes, and if Shoreham Academy don't offer another 30 places next year, which I don't think they can, we will be in a much worse position for next year's admissions than we are now. And that's been another driving force for me and Amy, because it's not just our Year 6 children. It's our Year 5 children, it's our Year 4 children, it's our Year 3 children. I've got the real graph here. So we were going to get to the graphs as well. There is a lot of information on here, but what I want to draw your attention to is the percentage of children that have gone to Woodard and Shoreham Academy from our school. This is for Swiss Gardens. And you can see there is a pattern here. It's typically between 70 to 80% of children, except for 2023 when it dropped to 44%. This is unprecedented. And my first thought when I saw this was what would have happened if Shoreham Academy didn't offer to stretch and take another class? Is this a success of council planning for places? No, it's a failure. Begging a school to take children over their plan. That's not proactive, that's reactive. That's the council panicking. We deserve better and our children deserve better. Do you want to take over for a bit?
So how did this happen? We've talked about catchment maps, or Jade has, PAN, bulges, previous years. Let's move on to West Shoreham. We've collected some of our own data from our Year 6 Swiss pupils. This map represents all of the children who were allocated either Shoreham Academy, Robert Woodard, or did not get any of their 3 preference schools. We don't have Stenning or Davisons on here because they're not in our catchment. Purple are pupils that got Robert Woodard. The white trees are the pupils that got Shoreham Academy. And the red crosses are those who didn't get any of their choices. If you remove the sibling link, you can see that the pupils in this particular area of West Shoreham, which we've now renamed No Man's Land, or the black hole, or the sinkhole, because it's likely to grow, have not been able to get into either of their catchment schools, but they didn't get their 3rd choice school either. Sibling link. So if you have a sibling in one of those schools already, then you come higher up on the list of being allocated that school. We've drawn our own little circles now. There was no point in us looking at our catchment schools, it turns out. We never had a chance of getting in. This particular area of West Shoreham doesn't seem to have a catchment. So I'm going to have a show of hands now. If you see along the river here, this little bit of West Shoreham, this slither here, no man's land, if you think that's where you live at the moment, where your house is. Crikey. Let this be your warning. You either have to seriously consider looking at and hoping for other schools outside of the catchment, moving house, or we all collectively make sure that this does not happen again for our future children.
Brilliant, thank you. You can see why I haven't seen their children for a few days. So I realised I didn't introduce myself at the start. So I'm Alastair Reid. I'm got a few hats in the game here, but I'm chair of governors for Swiss Gardens Primary School. That's why I feel passionately about helping you lot get where you need to go, because they're such brilliant kids, as we've seen earlier on the film. I want them to have the best opportunities that they can in life going forward. So there's that, and also about 7 years, 2016, 17, I think, there's a few people started a group called Fast Future Adur Schools Team, and actually that pretty much came about initially because we had these porta cabins dumped on our school very unceremoniously, and this bulger, which happens to be this bulge here, coming to the school, there's lots of hoo-ha, and it's kind of like, what's going on? And it was against the wishes of the governors at that time, because they didn't think they could take that number of people in the site. They were overruled by West Sussex. And so everyone started looking a bit more deeply, going to go, why is this happening? Is it just a Swiss thing, or actually is it a Shoreham thing? And actually what became clearer and clearer, looked at the numbers, was that it was a Shoreham thing, and actually pretty much all the schools in Shoreham had expanded. And so we thought, well, this is going to be an issue because they're all at capacity, and also we get a good 6-year lead up to when all these kids hit secondary school. So maybe we want to see if our kids are going to get a secondary school place. So the goal of the group was to get better long-term planning. Failed, very sorry about that. Growing capacity to meet demand. Failed, sorry about that. During that stakeholders, we've really tried. You'll see in a minute how we tried. Tried to give parents a voice. I think we've been quite successful in giving people a voice. And for there to be safe and appropriate school intakes. I think that's really important. Like, I've heard it said a lot in the last 2 weeks, like, can't they stick another porta cabin on, can't they do this, can't they do that? And it's like, as Mr. Scanlon was just showing me some pictures of their corridors at break time today, and there's health and safety issues starting to come into play here, and the same with Shoreham Academy as well. Just stuffing more and more kids into the school without facilities, capacity to cope with them is not necessarily the answer. So yeah, there's safe and appropriate, and this is what will happen. So Seaside expanded, Salting, St Nicholas Primary. So lots of bulge classes, but also permanent expansions. So like just see this trine of kids coming up from the primary schools, and we can just see where they're all going to go, because as you saw earlier, the secondary schools were already full. I mean, I think if you live in West Shoreham, you probably wouldn't be able to get into Shoreham Academy for the last 6 years. Yeah. so our local school, you would not have been able to get into. You lived in West Shoreham for the last 6 years, which is, I think that's pretty bad in itself. But sort of Woodard at that time came rushing onto the scene, and actually at that time I feel like they're a little bit in the same situation as St Andrews have been put into in this scenario. They were a school that had Ofsteds which they wouldn't wanted on their front page of their website. And but they had a new head. They were clearly a school on the way up. I think there's actually a lot of similarities, I think, with St Andrews in this regard. And Kieran came to this meeting 6 years ago, announced himself, and actually a lot of parents went from kind of going, God, this is a disaster, we've got to Woodard to going there. And I think lots of kids are now pretty much been through, had a great experience, and now he's gone from being 2 classes undersubscribed every year to 3 classes oversubscribed. So in terms of Woodard, that's been a success story, but it's still been a terrible story in terms of capacity. Housing growth has been the biggest factor. Can't get around that. There's been 3,600 dwellings in the current local plan. This is where it comes back to a district issue as well, because to be fair, they didn't really have much of a choice. I think all the housing targets are set nationally. I know it's been taken away recently, but there's arguments about that. And just so you know, roughly about 1,000 dwellings is equivalent to 1 form entry school. So you can see if there's going to be sort of 3,000, 4,000 dwellings. That's about 4. That's a whole school's worth of 1 form entry. So 1 class, 2 class, 3 class, 4 class. To be really fair to everyone involved as well, it was a national issue. It wasn't just the Shoreham issue. It wasn't just the West Sussex issue. There was a baby boom in the early 2000s. I don't know what you guys were doing, but yeah. So there's 500,000 more pupils in the system in 2016 than there were in 2009, and that was set to continue to rise. I'm not going to go through these. I think you've seen some of these already. So you can just see the capacity of secondary schools just filling up, even going up to 2016. There is a bit of a broken system providing new school places. So obviously there's always pressure and demand from new housing, from people moving to London, from Brighton Drift, from all thousands of new homes. There is a split divide of responsibilities, as I already discussed, between ADA, who have responsibility for planning, and they have to hit these housing targets regardless of whether infrastructure is in place or not. And then West Sussex, who are responsible for planning and provision of all school places in West Sussex, and responsible for running all state schools, which most of the primary schools are state schools in this area, but not academies. So they don't actually have any control over academies, but they do outsource their admissions to West Sussex. So the academies, Woodard, Shoreham Academy, they do outsource their admissions to West Sussex. The other problem, and again in fairness to West Sussex, is they cannot open new schools. So, about 6 years ago, we're going, oh, maybe we need a new school. And actually, that's very, very difficult to do because West Sussex, any council are not allowed to open new schools these days because all new schools have to be academies and they have to be outside of the council system, basically. So if you want a new school, it's got to be set up by an academy chain or a sponsor or a faith system or whatever. So that's really hard to do, which kind of does leave them with kind of like not many tools in their box. It does quite often result in knee-jerk short-termism. Like even today, like the answers we got from West Sussex were like, well, next year we're going to wait till like March, and then we're going to see the numbers, and then we're going to see what we do about it. And I don't know any other industry, business, whatever, who would react after the event and then start planning for what was going to happen. But so there's a lot of that. All this extra space does create less space to play, multiple lunch sittings, no whole school assemblies. I don't know if you guys have done a whole school assembly. No, never. So they can't fit them in. There's more pressure on kids and staff, and it can be quite an overwhelming experience. I'm sure Jim Coupe will say something in a bit, but they took this 30 this year, extra 30, very much. Can I say this? Yeah, okay. Very much against their kind of instincts because they feel it's really full, like quite like claustrophobically full, and they didn't want to take any more. I think he told me the other day that there's like 1 spare classroom in the whole school. So basically, if anything happens, or special needs kids, whatever, need a bit of space, whatever, then if that that classroom's occupied, that's it. So that's the reality of what we're talking about. So them taking another 30 was a massive deal. I think, West Sussex has been quite keen to sort of blame a little bit the academies for just being, not necessarily the schools themselves, but them being academies and being outside of their system. But I think the truth is, from my perspective, they've been bending over backwards to help support our community and take as many kids as possible, but there are limits. So we did a local campaigning. This is way back. You might recognise some of the faces involved. And, you know, this is the point that I always say at this stage, no one can say they weren't warned or they didn't know this was going to happen, because this is like 2016, 2017, 2018, when we were making a big noise about this. Because I was worried about my kids. I've now got a 13-year-old and 16-year-old, and I didn't know if they were going to have a place, so that's why I got involved. And so we made a lot of noise about it. We had a lot of meetings. We had a very similar meeting to this one 6 years ago. We met all the West Sussex big wigs there. We were reassured it's all right, we're going to have a plan. It's all fine. Yeah. So it was there, and actually it got to the point where we just had to go. Okay, we've made the noise. We've told you. We really can't do any more. It's now over to you, and we have to trust you. And unfortunately, that trust has been let down. We did have a small success. Got a bit of money. Got a playground. There's a certain irony about this, that this was also about 2017, 2018, and actually it was to help with the Bowls year, to give them some more play space in our school. And I think it's only last week that I got signed off into an official decision. so in 6 years, to go from a press release, which was sent to the Argus, to actually being an official decision, and the kids are leaving the school who it was meant for. So, you know, the wheels move slowly. We also organise loads of events like this. That's a 41-year-old, I think it's something the other day, Mr. Scanlon, naive, optimistic, hopeful that things are going to change. Little did he know. And yeah, so and actually this was the news story as reported at the time.
A community meeting's been held in West Sussex tonight to discuss what campaigners claim is a looming shortfall in the number of secondary school places. Parents say rising pupil numbers in the Shoreham area haven't been catered for, and many more are needed in the next year. The County Council insists it has a plan. This from our reporter Bryony Leyland.
This lot might not be thinking too hard about their future schooling, but for their parents it's a cause of real concern. They formed a campaign group to highlight what they say is growing pressure on secondary school places in Shoreham and beyond, a knock on its claim from the area's increasing popularity and an expansion of primary schools after a baby boom.
Planning something like secondary schools needs a bit of longer term thinking. They don't take into account new builds, so there's now going to be 3,700 new houses in the local plan for just this area here at Ada. So that's equivalent to a 4-form entry school that's going to be needed within the next 10 years.
Shoreham Academy, rated outstanding, is where many locals hope and expect to send their children at the age of 11. But campaigners reckon it will have at least 100 more potential pupils than places by next year. At tonight's meeting, parents shared concerns about what that will mean for children. How much does it matter having a local school?
For us, we really would like them to stay local. I mean, walking to school every day is fantastic for their health and their well-being.
West Sussex County Council says it does have a long-term plan and there will be sufficient places for children of secondary school age. The local MP says he agrees.
Shoreham Academy, which serves Shoreham and beyond, is an outstanding rated school and not surprisingly has been oversubscribed for some years. But there are at least 6 other schools within a few miles of Shoreham which children from Shoreham have traditionally gone to for many, many years. And many of those schools have got vacancies. So the last thing that the heads of those schools want is yet another secondary school starting up when we've actually got spare capacity.
Campaigners say parents need more information and a full debate about schooling options as they look to the future.
Well, there were around 100 parents at tonight's meeting, which has just finished, here to find out more about school places. There were head teachers here, some from schools which are further afield and have capacity to explain what they can offer. West Sussex County Council were not here. They're hosting their own meeting in 2 weeks' time, and they can expect that parents will have plenty of questions for them then. Alan.
Bryony Leyland, thank you.
I'm getting deja vu. So yeah, same building, same people, same shit, no answer. So
a community meeting's been.
this video might play. Did everyone see the South Today piece the other day on the news? Yeah, so it's that one. It's still processing by Google apparently, so let's not worry about it. But yeah, so that was interesting. It was actually a really good piece. If you haven't seen it, look up on the FAST Facebook group. Really good. That's actually the best informed interviewer I've seen, kind of really good piece. And then interviewed Paul Wagstaff, who's the Director of Education or Assistant Director for Education West Sussex. And again, his answer was basically, it's been a success. We've done nothing wrong. We've hit our like 96% target for the whole of the county. And basically, you know, deal with it, basically. That's kind of the line. So there were plans that were put in place, just to be really clear. So, and I don't know whether this money has hit West Sussex Bank account yet, but you might have heard of certain kind of money called 106 money. So basically, for every development there is around the area, they have to give a certain amount of money to local infrastructure to help offset the impact of that development. It's called 106 money. So the fire service gets some, library gets some, and schools get some. So there is some other parents, Sarah and Ian, part of the FAST team. They found out there's £1.6 million that has been requested from West Sompting Development, which is near Woodard, and New Monks Farm. And in the planning permission, they have to say what it's for, and so they've been very specific and said it's for expansion of Woodard or Shoreham Academy. So far, no one's been able to say where that money is. It's meant to be spent locally, if it's captured locally, it's meant to be spent locally. There is a bit of a history of that money sort of disappearing into West Sussex County coffers and never be seen again. But in theory, that money is there at some point. And actually, this is from their own plan from 2021. They said that basically there needs to be another 60 places over 5 years to a 300 plan to a 1,500 plus provision plus sixth form. So that was the plan. It just never happened. And I'm afraid, those of you in lower years, it's going to get worse before it gets better. So we're in obviously 23, 24. So this is the total number of kids in Ada district for the new places of secondary school. So it's about 3,500, goes up to 100. So you can see where it was in 2021. 2021, 3,100. And basically at that point, they were saying they were full. So we've now got what looks like another 500 kids going up from 2021 to 2023, 24, 25. And that carries on. It does start levelling out towards the end of the decade, but it's a long way to go before then. So I'm not sure I want to be around waiting for the end of the decade. What about you? So that's the situation. Sorry, that's a lot of data and information, but it's important that you are informed because at the moment that's all you've got and your voice. And there is a fast-moving beast. We had emails 2 days ago from the Chief Executive of West Sussex to parents saying, oh, we're definitely going to build something that's Woodard by 2025. Today's answer is something that's 2024. It's kind of moving on time. There's a poor unfortunate guy whose job is to find the places. And funny enough, I went to a meeting last week with all the heads in West Sussex, and it was literally going around begging heads to take places, so there's a lot of that going on. But as you've already heard, that's easier said than done. So it's very difficult to see what the overall solution is for this coming September, and one can only hope that there is something more concrete in place, and I mean literally concrete, for 24-25. So
this is just repeated. I'm just going to summarise and finish there before we move on to questions and answers. So there's no doubt that the transition from primary to secondary is challenging, but it should also be exciting and something to look forward to. The events of the past 2 weeks have now made it all the more challenging for our children. The advice from county has very much been to appeal, and everyone I've spoken to has appealed or will be appealing. So now our children are in limbo, which is both unsettling and impacting their mental health. Am I going there or aren't I? Will I be with any of my friends or won't I? If I start school with my friends, how many will be there by Christmas, by Easter, or by the end of Year 7? This situation was known about 7 years ago. West Sussex County Council senior officers and decision makers who don't believe it's appropriate to be here tonight knew that the secondary schools in our catchment, the area which should serve our educational needs, would reach capacity by 22-23, and that the number of children would outnumber the places available. They also knew that to give our children a place at a secondary school in our so-called catchment, the expansion of Shoreham Academy or Sir Robert Woodard needed to be completed by September 23. And what have they done about it? We have been informed by Becky Shaw, West Sussex Chief Executive, that the County Council's approach has been to work hard to try to maximise the places available and to meet parental preferences as far as possible. This hard work she talks about is 7 years in the making. Just imagine what you could achieve with 7 years worth of planning and hard work. If only the planning and the execution of plans had been done by people with integrity and with the best interests of our children at the heart of it. Incidentally, this is their logo. As far as we can see, West Sussex hard work has entailed begging Shoreham Academy to take 30 extra pupils temporarily this year and plans to expand Woodard, but the work won't be completed until 2025 at the earliest. Well, this was what we were told on Tuesday. Now it's been moved forward a year to 2024. That's what we were told today. If they can move it forward by a year in 2 days, surely advancing it one more year to September 23 is an absolute possibility. Maybe our pressure is working, but I wouldn't hold your breath just yet. It feels like they are full of promises of plans that they don't follow through with. Nearly there. So Year 5 and Year 4 parents, you've been warned, which I guess puts you in a slightly better situation than our current Year 6 parents who had no warning. In autumn time, when it comes to looking around prospective secondary schools, at least you'll be prepped to look further afield, whatever that actually means. Look around schools in Brighton and Hove, look around schools in Worthing. But in order to do that, I'd recommend you start the process now, as it's going to take a long time. That is a lot of schools to look round. But just so you know, pretty much every school in Brighton and Hove is oversubscribed. And in Worthing, guess what? Most are pretty much oversubscribed too. And don't forget to look around your catchment schools, as you will be strongly advised to include a catchment school in your list of preferences. However, if you have a certain BN 43-5 postcode in Shoreham, we now know that this will be a complete waste of your time. As well, apart from seeing schools that your child could have gone to if only you lived a little further east of the black hole or a little further west of it. We have been discriminated against because of our postcode in West Shoreham, and our children have been completely failed by West Sussex County Council.
Very quickly, I do want to just say what are the options that you guys have got if you're in Year 6. And this has been described to me. I've spoken to all the local secondary heads in the last week, as I know Tim Melton has as well. And the options aren't looking great, to be honest. So, you know, the kind of rabbit out of the hat, unexpected expansion of one of the local schools. It's possible, it's very unlikely for reasons that we've discussed. There will be a very small amount of movement between now and September, so basically we're talking about 6 or 7 places per school probably, people who've been allocated a place and don't take it up or move out the area or go to private school or whatever. So if you're on the waiting list, and my number one message in all this is basically if you're not happy with your choice, appeal, and also don't just appeal to one place, like have as many options open as you can. Another stunning head fact said to me today, said, don't put all your eggs in one basket, even on the appeals process, just if that's the way you want to go, then just, you know, appeals don't want to go everywhere. Another head said to me, and this is slightly depressing, he said, maybe parents should aim to be in the place they want to be by the end of year 7. So basically, whether you end up at St Andrews or in the local schools or wherever, like, you know, hopefully if you go to St Andrews, you have a great experience, you want to stay. If you don't, then there'll be transition throughout the year. But he basically said, like, you know, if there isn't going to be any magic out of the hats, then try and having a child in the place it wants to be at the end of year 7, which is a bit depressing, isn't it? But that's kind of some of the reality of where we're at. Explore all options in parallel. That is, I think, all we want to say for now. I think, thank you for your patience. I know that's a lot to take in. I do think Jim Coupe, principal of Shoreham Academy, is off to factor whistling tonight. So I'm going to thank you for that. So I did want to catch him before he's off, and I know he's got. I thought it'd be really useful perhaps to hear from Jim, hear from Kieran, and also perhaps from Mia. Sorry, I should use the surname. Lowney, isn't it? Yeah. From Mia from St Andrews, because they're like three players in this situation, and certainly Kevin, I think, probably want to say a couple of things as your West Sussex County Councillor, and I'm sure Tim has something to say, and we'll get into the question and answers as soon as possible. So yeah, keep it brief, guys. Much briefer.
I go out once every 6 months. So actually taking in an extra 30 students does make me feel nervous. It wasn't something which, the moral imperative for it was there, and I'm joined this evening by our Chair of Governors, and I spoke with our Governors at length prior to making the decision, as well as United Learning, our sponsor. Because of course there is, those of you, some people in this room have got students at Shoreham Academy, and they know how busy it is there. It's a very, very full school, but it felt right to do that. I know the question on a lot of people's lips are sort of, okay, well, so 30 this year, 30 next year, can you add a few more this year? Well, ultimately, appeals will result in that number going up a little, and then people won't take up places, which is really frustrating when those people move. Like, how can they do that? They've got a place already, but of course that happens in people's lives, change differently. But we will ultimately be higher than 330 in September. It's not a never say never situation. It's like it's possible that we could manage, and actually it's better than we think it is. But at the same time, it could also be more challenging. We're trying to work out the rooming as we plan ahead to next year, and that is really, really challenging because literally you're looking at room spaces, and there's some periods of the day in which there might be 3 or 4 rooms available, and other periods where there's not. So it's like an extra complication in an already complicated situation. When we were in the last public meeting a few years ago, I guess I'll finish with this. What was really important was, and it was a message from myself and from officers and from obviously from Kieran as well, but place faith in the school that you're assigned. We do work together, and I know Mia as an outstanding school leader, and an outstanding school leader that has worked in other schools locally and has got a plan for St Andrews. So St Andrews may not have been the choice that you anticipated. You may not have even heard of it or thought about it. But it may well, think back, and there are a number of parents here who already feel very satisfied with the school that they are at for some of their older children. With the benefit of time, that may well, I feel confident that will prove to be the case as well. But please do keep up the pressure. We will keep up that pressure because we feel very strongly about it as well. And the people who are sat at the front feel strongly about it as well. Are there any obvious solutions? No. Is the fact that you are all speaking, and there's definitely more people here tonight than there was a few years back. So actually the strength of feeling is growing. And so therefore, we work together because we're proud of the community that we live in, and we're very proud of the community that we serve, and we do want there to be a really good solution to this. So there you go, that's about it from me, but I'm sure the others will have other points to make as well. All right.
I'll avoid the microphone, but head teachers, we're born with stentorian voices, so you should be able to hear us. Let me just kind of start where Jim finished. 2018, I think I was on that side, and it felt like an awful lot of people that night too. Actually, it was my first year as a head, and I was looking at the budget. There was no kids coming to the school. We'd had 6 head teachers prior to me for the previous 10 years, in and out of special measures, and everybody was going crazy. Alastair, very persuasive guy, saying, where are my children going to go to school? And on that night, I went, hold on a minute, guys. If I just do the math here, from front row to the back, I could take all of you in my school today. Yeah, it was more than that though. Spanish teacher, not math. 798 students in the school on that day as I stood here. There's over 1,400 students in the school today. Okay, it's a big number. I've hired over 60 teachers since 2018. We spend £850,000 a year now on just SEN alone. Just there was no money in the school. It was in a bad way. And I stood up and I said, guys, I know it says this Ofsted thing is not particularly favourable, but trust me, I've just come from an outstanding school in London, outstanding in all areas, and I said the same thing to the teachers there on the first day. The best day in the school I worked in London that was outstanding in all areas was the worst day that you'll ever see in Woodard Academy. The schools in West Sussex are actually pretty good, and we all get these labels of good, outstanding, and all the rest of it. They are meaningless, honestly, they are meaningless. You've got to get in amongst the school. You can't compare a school in Sunderland, London, Cornwall, West Sussex. These 4 words that kind of try to sum up the totality of what's going on in the school, it's pointless. And it puts us all, it kind of creates a lot of anxiety in the system for parents as well. Let me tell you, when I started as the head, there wasn't a child in North Lansing Primary School who didn't walk past my school to go to St Andrews. Every single child. Mark will tell you the same. Every single boy went to St Andrews. And every single girl went to Davison's. And I was just picking up children who hadn't really applied to school, very close to the school, not a chance of getting into Shoreham, the outstanding Shoreham Academy, not a chance. Some parents had a bit of faith. I got a lot of feedback from Alastair. He's actually a very demanding parent. You need them. And those children that have come to me from West Shoreham have played a huge part in improving the school. They're enthusiastic. We've seen them on camera. They're amazing kids. We spend £120,000 a year on coaches because, believe it or not, that trip across the River Adur, it might as well have been the Nile. Tim did a lot of that work as well. You'll remember, we were in lots of meetings and it was like, oh my, you couldn't possibly go across the river. Lansing, are you serious? And I used to do the opening thing, and the parents then were coming at you it was quite aggressive because, well, they were afraid, right? I'm got 2 kids myself. And they were like, how could I send my child? I've got such ambition. This child clearly going to be an astronaut. Actually, I can tell you now, I think a bit older, you're just happy about crack dealers, right? The ambition is there. And the parents used to come to me and say, right, I'm obviously from Shoreham. That's what they would say to me on the opening. And I'd kind of say, Madam, I'm obviously from Ireland. Why are you obviously from Shoreham? Did you come here on a paddle boat? So there's all that kind of stuff going on. But over the years, we got to know these parents, huge influence. Some of them became governors. Alastair, as I said, emails you every 5 minutes. If anything is going wrong, it's sorted. Huge money onto coaches. School just got better. If I could just speak for Mia for a second, which is a dangerous thing to do, and I'm sure she'll say it herself in a second, that same thing has happened, where a head has changed, another head has come, another head has changed. And as soon as things just settle down, that calms Ofsted down, and then that label that gives you that we all believe so much in, that goes, and then things will get better. So what I would say to you is, yes, there is actually a light competition that goes on between our schools. This is what, Tim will probably know more about this than me, but there is supposed to be competition, and that's supposed to improve things. I think that is a good idea when you're selling products. I'm going on a long time here, but in the service industry, it doesn't work really well. We all should be on the same team. So what we as heads do is we just get on the same team, okay? Because that's the best thing for everybody. And when I stand in front of you tonight, of course I want those children in my school. Of course I do. Why would you not want them? That's the win right there. All those kids coming to your school, that's all you got to do, really. Find some great teachers, and we're away, yeah? But there does come a moment where I have to stand in front of everybody and say, I have tried to expand this school. I even found an architect who went to our school, who was coming to do it. You know, I will do this, I'll do it pro bono, I just love to contribute to my school. The porta cabins that have gone into the school are still not paid for. I was Googling for yurts and tents to teach the additional children that I've been taking. So I was naive when I stood here and said, yeah, of course we're going to expand. I promise you, the chances of a new building arriving for next September are tricky. And it's not just the building, it's the corridors, it's the additional sports hall, it's everybody moving around, it's pressure. There's an awful lot of pressure on the building. And you know, if we really lobby and we really push, and all these children do come to the school, or you know, we take another 30 over what we can do now, it's going to be difficult for everybody. You know, we can't dilute the schools, we can't, you know, fill them so much that it's actually a disservice to the kids that are already there. So that is game, that's the face I have to, you know, present tonight, which is harder than saying, come with me. You know, tonight I'm coming with, oh my God, yeah, I've tried to expand the school. I'm not opposed to expanding the school in the future. That is not, you know, absolutely, I'm totally up for it. But the chances of that happening in the next few weeks, not going to happen. The chances of that happening for September, not going to happen. The chances of it happening for next year, well, you know, there's levers we can pull. You know, the honest answer is it's going to be difficult. So I absolutely want all of these children in my school. That's the truth. But what I can say to you is, you know, Mia will speak to you in a second. If you go back a few years, St Andrews absolutely up here, Shoreham Academy, marvellous school, all the way up here, and Woodard Academy was the one you didn't want to go to. So these things do change. And you know, when you get a head teacher, you can come and do the business. Mia actually leads all of us local head teachers in the community. And you know, we'll be a super head and we'll make a connection with this community. And unfortunately, it's the last thing I'll say, there has been a long-standing tradition of 20% of the children in Shoreham going elsewhere for education. That is built into the system. So we've got to talk about that going forward, and we've got to talk about what it's going to look like. And you know, we absolutely want to be part of that conversation and part of any solution. But I do think it's important that we get a chance to listen to Mia, because this is the quick solution.
I don't know how I'm going to follow those two comic geniuses, so I want to say thank you for the very kind words and thank you for the invite. So this is my first public meeting over in Shoreham, and I'm seeing some familiar faces, so it was lovely to see many of you come to our open evening that we put on last night, because I fully recognise that you didn't necessarily have the opportunity to come to those open events in September that you potentially would have done. You didn't come to those open evenings, and so it's been lovely to be able to see you and get to know you, and I would strongly encourage anybody that hasn't been able to get in touch. Year 4, Year 5, Year 6, anybody, counsellors, come and see us in action, because what Kieran's just said is absolutely accurate. You get a snapshot on a day, and that isn't necessarily what the school is like. And I can promise you that anything that is needing addressing, as I said in my speech last night, I do fairly robustly and I do it at pace, because that's how I work. And James, my deputy, is here tonight, so if you want to know what that lived experience for my team is, you can absolutely ask him. I do appreciate that for a number of people it was a shock when you opened that email or the letter on Wednesday the 1st. And to be honest, that was not what we had anticipated in St Andrews either. But what I can say, which both of my colleagues will say, is education is about every child. And so every child that walks through our door, we will absolutely love. We will make sure that we do absolutely the best for them. We're going to work with you. We're going to work with the counsellors. We're going to work with everybody we can to make sure that it is the right thing for those young people. Whether they end up with me at St Andrews, whether they end up at Woodard or over at Shoreham Academy, we work together. We make sure that we do the right things for those young people, and we will continue to do that over time. We may open to any questions that you have, because I'm very aware that I am new to you. It is a school potentially some of you have never heard of. So if you want to pick up the phone, book a meeting via Teams, because the joy of the pandemic has allowed that now, so we can have online meetings, which is easier. You can come onto site. I'm very happy to have phone conversations, because more than anything, we are an unknown. So I'd like to make sure that we are known to you. So if it is something you want to consider as an option in the future, that you are there. Because although we are across the river, it's not too far, and we have started conversations about that transport, which I know a number of you have questions over, and that is a conversation that I have also started with County. We aren't towards the end of that conversation yet, but it has been started. So thank you for coming, and thank you for inviting me, and I'll be around at the end if anyone does want to just have a conversation and ask some questions.
Do you guys want to say anything, or should we go to questions? I think. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I really want to thank Mia. It's been as tough as things at the start. I assume in the last couple of weeks, as it's been for lots of other people. She wasn't, as we just found out, this is another indication of the planning process. She wasn't aware this was going to happen as much as you guys were going to happen. So that's much to turn our heads. Like, seriously.
I see you've got a head teacher. Sorry, the fourth head teacher. I'm the head teacher of PACA over in Poston. I'm Poston. I was in the last meeting we had here, and I just wanted to say that I appreciate it. For those parents in West Shoreham, a school in Portslade is as useful to a fish as a bicycle. However, irrespective of that, I know there'll be some parents. We have quite a number of families that do come to Shoreham up to Portslade. If it works for you, then please do. As Kieran was saying, schools go up and down. Kieran, you and I used to work together briefly at Woodard, at Woodard. I've been there for 4.5 years. When I arrived, it was a school of 500. It's a school of 950 now. We're pretty close to being at capacity. This year, we are virtually at pupil admission number. We've got about 5 places because of withdrawals. So if it works for you, there are spaces. And I appreciate that most of the schools in the centre of Brighton are oversubscribed. But the schools which are on the periphery of Brighton, all the schools on the periphery of Brighton, there are spaces within them. So it is worth going to have a look at some of the schools within Brighton and Hove. It is a little bit like the river, that West Sussex Brighton boundary. Yeah, I mean, horrors, an urban school, but actually they're very similar. And Jim and I, we've worked together on various things. So that collaboration across the West Sussex Brighton boundary does occur. So please, if you're interested in PACA at all, please get in touch. I'm more than happy to show people around, just as Mia is. Okay, thank you very much.
It's worth pointing actually, kids didn't know, you can apply to any school in the country. You don't have to apply to school catchment. So you can go to PACA. If you find spaces and you're prepared to travel, you can apply and we'll get in if there are spaces.
Tim, I'm intrigued as to your view on your opinions from the news article or news video that you saw earlier, and whether or not you think that now there might be a problem and what you think you might do to help that problem.
Shall I respond at the end and pick up that and various other points? Probably easiest. Sure.
Anyone else?
You said about the predicted numbers for the next few years, that's going to rise. Is that, have you taken into consideration all the new builds and stuff? Yes. Or is that just with who's here at the moment?
Yeah, so West Sussex have got a bit of software. I can't remember what it's called, but they changed it after we complained last time that it's very, very, very good. So it is, supposedly does take into account the new builds, yeah.
Can I just ask, what about people that live in flats? Do they have children?
Yeah, so this is a bit of a potential issue, but people live in flats. Like there was an assumption in the old system that people in flats don't have kids. I'm hoping that's changed. It's fixed. It's fixed. Okay. So yeah. Lady in front. Yeah.
So we're told obviously with the schools that they're outstanding or inadequate and stuff. So
We're being told to ignore the fact that what they're being marked as, well, there must be a reason that Ofsted report that. You don't go to a restaurant and get rated 5-star food restaurant if it's not that. So why would we have an Ofsted report about what they are if they're not that?
Take it.
Okay, I can certainly answer that one. So Ofsted do undertake observations. They'll walk around the school, they'll speak to students, they speak to leaders, and they do that over the course of a couple of days, absolutely. To get an outstanding rating, you have to tick every single bullet point in each area. So there are 4 main areas: quality of education, which is teaching and learning, outcomes; personal development, which is to do with the pastoral system, how well they understand the world around them, how well they develop as an individual, their morality; behaviour and attitudes, which were to do with their attendance, their conduct, their attitude towards the world, how they just generally behave. And then there is leadership and management, how well the school is led, managed and overseen. So to get outstanding, there are boxes, and there's about 8 bullet points in each of those categories. You literally have to tick every single one. That's why there's such a small percentage of outstanding schools, because it's incredibly hard to get. You've then got good and requires improvement, and it's a best fit at that point. You can get 3 bullet points in one and 4 in the other, but still get good or requires improvement, depending on where that average sits. To get an adequate, you tick 1 bullet point on any 4 of those areas, and the entire judgment is pulled down. And so you could have, in theory, outstanding quality of education, you could have great personal development, you could have really good general behaviour around the school, but 1 bullet point and the entire grading is inadequate. And so what that means is that report will focus on the areas that have been identified with what they've seen. And there are going to be challenges with reports because there are a small number of people. So our particular inspection, we had 3 people and we have a very big site. They come in, they spend about 3 hours in meetings, and then they spend a couple of hours walking around the school. So do they see the entire school? Probably not, because they don't have the physical time. Are they able to get really under the skin? Sometimes, absolutely. But what's important is for you as parents to go and see whether the school is what you think that is, whether you think that is the school that you want your children to go to. Last year, we robustly challenged our report. I'm still in communication with Ofsted. I, in fact, went to have a personal conversation with Amanda Spielman, the Chief Inspector of Ofsted last week, and then emailed her directly. I'm currently in the middle of drafting a letter to Ofsted to ask them to come back and re-inspect, because we firmly believe that that judgment is not representative of our school. I'm continuing to challenge that because it's absolutely right that we do. But with that said, that isn't something we're focusing on in the daily running of the school, because that isn't the most important thing for our children. The most important thing for the children isn't what letter, isn't what word defines a school, it's their lived experience. And if a student comes to us and says, do you know what, I really love coming to this school, if they come home and they say, I've had a great day, guess what I did? If the outcomes they get enable them to make their next steps, that is what matters. So yes, it's important to look at it because it's part of a picture. It's a dot on a map, but it isn't the whole thing. The whole thing is the child's experience. So go to schools. I'm going to invite you to go and see Kieran's school without him knowing. But do, go and visit them during the school day. Because I know this, because we do this as well. Open evenings will show you the school in the evening. You need to go and see it with the students in lessons. See what they are like when they're learning, when they're actually living that experience. That tells you what a school is like. Speak to the students, speak to the staff, because they are the people that run that machine. We're good speakers, we do this, you know that. Actually, you speak to the teachers, they will tell you what it's really like. So I would strongly encourage you to do that in any school you're interested in, and all schools will enable that. They may give you a couple of dates to play with, but it's important you go and experience that yourself, because one school is not going to be right for everybody. We all do things in a slightly different way. We all have slightly different values and ethos, and that's okay, because you need to find the one that's right for your child, because your child is unique and your child is individual, and you need to find what is right for them. And you can only do that by looking past a 2-page report.
But then we've got no choice in where we're putting them. You're saying find the right school, but we don't have a choice in finding the right school.
I totally appreciate what you're saying, and I very much respect that. That's really difficult. I don't have an answer to that right now, but what I am saying is placing a judgment on a school based on a 2-page report without having seen it may be something you want to just come and visit.
But then you've said Ofsted have done that as well, and they've got that opinion of you. So we're going to see what they're going to see.
I would welcome you to come and visit. Welcome you to come and visit.
was to say as well, like this evening wasn't meant to be about St Andrews because it was about the system of school places, but I have only heard things about Miss Lowney, and you know, it is good to catch schools on the way up. There are some advantages about going to a school that's under capacity because there's loads of space, loads of play space, loads of things going on there. There's good teacher ratios, pupils to teachers, lots of good things. And actually, I think the old adage is like, you know, a few good families can make a school great. So it's as much about the parents as about the school as well. The only thing I'd say as a caveat to that, which is the elephant in the room, so obviously Ofsted is one of them. The distance is another thing, so it is 3/4 of a mile from the train station. At the moment, West Sussex is saying that only transport, basically if you're over 3 miles, they're supposed to provide transport. The only transport they're saying they provide at the moment is train, and it's about 3/4 of a mile from the station. It sounds like Stanley is in discussions about addressing that. Because in all honesty, I wouldn't want my 11-year-old daughter walking through the middle of Worthing on a dark winter's night, honestly.
It's not just the distance that end either though, is it? Because if you're in West Shoreham, there's still quite a distance to the station this side as well.
Yeah. I mean, my daughter goes to Davison, so she does the train every day from the station here to East Worthing. And actually, the advantage of Davison got the stations right next door to the school. Is a little bit of further walk, definitely, and that's different. I think the co-ed thing is obviously, so everyone knows it was a boys' school. It was made co-ed a couple of years ago, I think, to try and kind of help boost numbers in all honesty. And it's currently 95% boys, is that right?
No, so each year group has different ratios, so we've obviously got 100% boys in year 9, 10 and 11,
yeah.
But the ratios are different in the younger year groups.
So, and it's fairly strong in the face school practices? Go on, you say.
I talked about this last night, I'm sorry, I know you're here to talk about catchment and stuff. I've been asked more about my faith in the last 2 weeks than I have in the last 2 years. So I am unapologetic, I am somebody of faith, I am Christian, and that is absolutely where my faith comes from. But as I said last night, that isn't how I expect other people to live their lives. That isn't what I expect from people. We have assemblies, and somebody asked me yesterday, do you have collective worship where you force everybody to come and worship together? And I said, no, we have assemblies where all other schools would do the same thing, when we talk about a theme. We have reflection time where we all talk about something, about our place in the world. So we do have RE in the curriculum, whereas other schools might have it in their PSHE curriculum. We do church visits, but we also do visits to a mosque, and we do visits to other religious places because that's part of the RE curriculum. It isn't something that means that young people will then arrive and then become somebody that is Christian. It is a school that places the idea from the Bible of love at its core, because that is what the Bible teaches at its absolute fundamental level, love and inclusion. And that is what we place at the forefront, not making people believe in God, but showing love and respect for other people.
I think it's obvious that the catchment system is broken.
Yeah.
So what's the plan in terms of fixing that for the guys that are here with the kids? It's no good for us.
Who would you like to ask, I guess?
I don't mind whoever wants to take
Can
it.
I just add to that? I think what we need before we have that discussion is an acknowledgement from West Sussex that it's broken.
Yeah.
All we've heard so far is that everything's gone to plan. The numbers that you've shown tonight are their numbers. This is their plan. They did the planning. They haven't implemented anything, and they won't come out and publicly say that they've failed anyone or done anything wrong. And I think, as a parent community, that's what's driving the anger, and that is that, you know, if everything's gone to plan, then this will happen again next year and the year after.
And
until they say, yes, sorry, this hasn't happened. This is what we're going to do to address it. But you have to say, yes, there is a problem here, and there's no acknowledgement of it, despite all of their planning numbers showing that. And that's why I'm cross.
Kevin's up for taking that. Kevin Gangstreaches, he's the West Sussex Councillor for Shoreham South. It's weird, it's sort of north and south. So he is your political representative for West Sussex.
Thank you very much. At West Sussex, rather than for West Sussex. I'm not the leader. I totally agree with you. I had a very interesting meeting, I say politely, with the Cabinet Member for Education and his senior officers this week and the previous week, and they were saying that they thought this year was successful. And I was saying to them, that can't be right. They've got 189 children in the south of the county unable to be offered a secondary school place with their 3 preferences. Well, I've got 55 of those in Ada. So that is my problem. You might have got an average right, but you haven't got it right for my community, a community that I have lived in here for 30 odd years. I've always lived in BN 43-5, which I never knew. And actually, when I first got here, my children got to senior school age, the first thing we did was to send them to Brighton. We didn't even consider King's Manor or Bounstone, as it was then. And the work that these head teachers have done in turning those schools around, I can nearly say they've been a victim of their own success, frankly, which is what we've got here. We've now got Shoreham as a really popular community for families. And I'm really, really proud of that. And that's why I wanted to become a councillor. Not the politics bit, but because I wanted to represent my community. So I've been looking at their things, and they've been saying, oh, we've been applying the laws, and effectively all those sort of things. I absolutely don't care. It hasn't worked for my community.
They're blaming us for not looking further afield.
Well,
we were never
exactly right, and that's the frustrating thing. There was a lack of communication at the beginning of this process, so people really understood the dynamics of what's happening. Schools do go up, down, sideways, and everything else. And the thing that really frustrates me is that they've done all this planning work for 3 or 4 months. They knew they had a problem. I would have thought the first thing they should have done was to call in the local councillor and say, what does your community want? And that to me is a real frustration that I couldn't, I learned from the 15 emails I received on the day the results came out. That is too late for me to, and I'm quite happy to have in-confidence meetings with them, all those sort of things, to deal with this issue. In respect of the overall planning, I've spent my professional career planning projects, all those sort of things. And I know how complex it is as a school is. You can't do it overnight. You've got teaching, you've got space, you've got logistics, all of those things. And what really frustrates me, when I first became a county councillor, my first meeting virtually was with Fast and Ali over there to talk about this. And I knew that we were heading to this direction, and I knew that we can't solve it in 1 year. You've heard the complexity from the head teachers here. So the thing that really frustrates me is that West Sussex haven't got round the table with these people and worked out a long-term plan with all the teachers that can support this community. So one of the things that I want to do at the end of this meeting is that I want to have a meeting with Paul Marshall, the leader, and I want to have it with this Tim, who's got fantastic knowledge of this community, and the head teachers to work out what that long-term plan is. I don't want to deal with, frankly, the education department because I think they're on the defensive. I want to deal with somebody who's saying, right, how do we get out of this? How do we work together, not just the teachers, Tim and everybody else, but the community to make this the fantastic place that I think it is. Thank you very much.
I've got to say this so it's clear, and with the greatest respect, we've had a number of meetings. Tim, Kevin, Al, it's gone back a number of years. It's come up time and time again, and both of you have agreed that West Sussex's data is wrong. And it needs noting in front of all of these people that you have said, and we've all recognised, that West Sussex's data is wrong. And so all of this is based on data that we've all agreed is wrong. And that needs rectifying. There needs to be a better answer to that.
You said earlier the system is based on a computer, so a computer never lies. And think of this like a test for West Sussex, where all they're trying to do is get the highest grade possible for their first schools. That leaves our sinkhole, which you mentioned earlier. So the questions we're asking
are wrong. We're looking at what their first places are. The question should be second places. That's the failing for us. We can't go to one, go to another, where it's not even, it's a fourth. So the main question is what we're going to do. I'm lucky, I think, in this room, I've got 2 years for my first child to go to secondary. The data in which we are grading West Sussex is incorrect because they only have to do percentage of first school. That's where this problem is. The question should be second, third. How many have to travel more than X distance or weren't even on their list? That's where they should be graded because, like all of us, our first and second are close. I'd happily go to any of the schools mentioned here today. Me, distance. You want your child to be an independent person and travel on their own means in a way which you would like them to. Some train trips, a bit too far. But the question is wrong we're asking. Can you understand? It's a computer deciding. Computer has to be asked a different question to give you a truthful answer.
West Sussex does publish data in respect of how many children got to their first choice, and they also publish data about how many children got to their first, second and third choice. And I think that is in your answers, but it's certainly published. But the problem with those statistics is that it doesn't pick out communities where it hasn't worked properly. It's a big average. It's like, so that's where it's wrong. In respect of the numbers, well, I'm an accountant, so I know that every single projection I do is probably wrong. But what you do with the projection is that you make sure that if the numbers change up or down by 10 or 15%, it doesn't matter because you've got effectively we call it risk. We've got a plan to deal with that risk and we can manage it. So what I'm seeing with West Sussex is this old thinking of this is projection, we think it's wrong, we don't really believe it, or whatever, we're not going to take any action. So there are some big things missing on that, which I think is really important and not how you should do those projections. We all know they're wrong. They're an indicator, but it's putting in that risk.
So we did ask West Sussex about this free preference thing, and they said that over 3% of people across the country have not secured one of their 3 preferences. So 3%, across the county. So 3% across the county, but obviously it's like 45% here. So it is definitely a localised issue. There was someone who had a hand up.
I just wanted to say that it feels like it's, St Andrews for this year, but it feels like for the rest of the years it's like a lottery and it's whatever school is not doing very well at that time, and that is so frustrating because I can't even get excited about this great sounding St Andrews, which I now found what do I get in 2 years' time? I just get the school that's got space, and that is just absolutely unacceptable.
It is an illusion of choice. Like basically the schools are full, there is no choice, basically. So yeah. Champagne.
Hello, yes. Question is, why don't the catchment areas flex to pick up all geographies? The sinkhole exists. Why, with greatest respect, let's say all the schools are equal parity of quality, and you made a very good case this evening. Why are we filling St Andrews? Why aren't Worthing and Lancing filling St Andrews? And why isn't Shoreham Academy doing less Southwick?
Because people Southwick would complain. Basically, that's the honest. Kieran.
The truth is that actually there is no such thing as a catchment area. That's something that used to exist. If you were in London now, or a big urban area, no one talks about catchment areas anymore. Simply, as the crow flies from the entrance to the school is how things are decided. Catchment areas, what they do here, I learned, is that it means it pops up. When you Google where can my kid go to school, I changed the catchment area when I came. I said they're still doing catchment areas. Great. I'll draw the line down here, and guess what? The name of the school suddenly popped up. So catchment areas, they don't exist. They're not real. Yeah.
But when you apply to a secondary school, the first thing it does when you go on the website to do it is say, type in your postcode, and it lists the 2 catchment schools, and all the advice says you must include one of these as a preference. I absolutely agree, but then don't put that in your guidance and
it's catchment and being misinformed.
That is something that exists locally that doesn't exist nationally.
And let me make a number of points. First point is thanks to the team who've made this possible today. I know how much work they've done. I know how many emails I'm getting daily at the moment about it. And the fact there's so many people here this evening, probably double what was here, the meeting we did 6 years ago, shows how serious an issue this is. And God knows I've had enough emails to prove it. And I think half of the people here this evening were at my Farmers Market street surgery on Saturday as well. So I'm very familiar with this. You're very angry. Everyone here is very angry. I'm pretty pissed off as well, because we were not told about this. I had no warning. The county councillors for the area had no warning until you got your allocations about what was going to happen. That's not very clever. The communication has been really bad, and I'm really angry at the county council for not allowing, or the officers not coming along this evening to be able to answer some of those technical questions and explain how this has happened, because I think this could have been avoided. Now, when we met here, was it 2017, 2018, and in response to the question over there, we had a problem of schools with lots of surplus places, of which the closest and with the biggest problem was Kieran School at Sir Robert Woodard, having been through a challenging period, but actually due to Kieran and some of the fantastic staff he brought in, was on an upward trajectory. A lot of parents came here who were expecting to go to Shoreham Academy, mostly from Swiss Gardens. And all of a sudden, Shoreham Academy were a victim of their own success, was completely full and oversubscribed. I remember over 20 years ago, when I first became an MP, I had parents coming to complain to me because they didn't want to send their kids to King's Manor, as it was, or to Bounston, as Sir Robert Woodard Academy was, and they wanted them to go to Davison's or to St Andrews in East Worthing, which were both full up. So gosh, how things have come full circle. And part of the problem here as well, which is why catchment areas are bust, but they never really worked here, because there was always a tradition of Shoreham kids going to East Worthing schools, particularly Davison's and St Andrews, because they're single sex or faith, feeder schools and the church schools or whatever, which is out of the district. In other districts, there will be a tendency to stay in this district. Just to diverge a minute, if you think you're being penalised because you live in the postcode around here, don't take it personally. You do seem to have been discriminated against twice. There's another problem in another part of West Sussex, which I know is no compensation to you, but my colleague Jeremy Quinn, who represents Horsham, he's got parents who've got kids in schools to the west of Horsham, have been allocated Burgess Hill Academy, which I think on current public transport timing is a 90-minute journey, completely nuts. So West Sussex have screwed up in at least two parts of the county, but I'm only concerned with what is happening here. So that meeting we had 6-7 years ago, Kieran came and did a really good hard sell on why we should trust Sir Robert Woodard for your children to go there. And to give the parents credit, on trust, they said, okay, we will try it. And there were some discussions that took place around transport there, how it would work with after-school clubs, and all that sort of thing. They went, and it worked. And actually, so many parents then came back a year, 2 years later to say, we're really glad we did that. And then there came an expectation, quite rightly, that kids from Swiss Gardens would go to Sir Robert Woodard, and that was the expectation again this year. But Kieran has been a victim of his own success. And for various reasons, which I lay the blame again on the county not going ahead with the expansion, which could have been started there, which might have solved this problem, now that school is full. Now, I know St Andrews has been a really good school in the past, and I know that St Andrews is on a really good upward trajectory. And I reread the Ofsted report earlier today, and those ratings don't do it justice, and I think it's really unfair. And if you read the narrative, there's some really good stuff going on there. But people should have been warned. People should have been given the choice to find out if there were schools beyond the expectation of Shoreham Academy or through Woodard or Davison's or whatever. And then Mia could have done a full sell job as well, and parents could have gone to find out if that was suitable for their children. So I think the fact that this has been bounced on everybody has made it doubly worse.
The point is, even if it had been, so even if it wasn't suitable, even if that was the case, we still haven't got a choice.
That's the only choice. Hobson's choice you've been ended up with.
Even if you didn't like it,
And the point is, we need every school to be a good school, because it doesn't help all the other schools if you've got a school that's really suffering and parents don't want to send their kids there and they've got those places. So what are we going to do about this? Well, look, we've had, every day we've had meetings with heads. I've spoken to the parents, to officials at the county council, and we're giving, and will continue to give, the officials a really hard time. I think there is some wriggle room this year. The appeals process is really important, and I would encourage everybody to go down that route. The councillors here, all of us will help giving advice on appeals if that would help, working with the schools to make your case as strong as possible. But that does mean that if your appeal to go to Sir Woodard or Shoreham Academy or whatever is successful, it's putting more pressure on those schools. But in the short term, we've got to try and find how we can get more kids going to St Andrews, and you're happy for the kids to go to St Andrews, because I think there are great opportunities, and I can see us being back here in a few years' time, people complaining they can't get the kids to St Andrews again, as happened a few years ago, but see how many of the other schools around here can take some extra kids. This year is going to be challenging. I don't trust the county's numbers, because they say that this bulge year is only going to last a couple of years. I don't think that's right. Correct. And even if it does last 2 or 3 years, I think it will dip, and then we're going to have permanent bulges after that, because of the level of development that is going on, as we know, around Shoreham Harbour and then the west of Lancing and West Sompting in particular as well. So this problem is here to stay. And I just think that they get their numbers wrong at West Sussex, and we challenged them last year because David Etherington, some of you will know, who's the head of St Nick's, wanted to have a new primary school, which is going to be part of their chain, and he made a really good case for it. He didn't just rely on all the computer projections, he went and spoke to local estate agents. He went to see some of the developments and the sort of families that are moving in to those developments, and he spoke to planners and others. And surprise, surprise, people moving into some of those new flats on Shoreham Harbour are not all retired people or young people without any kids. There are actually kids in there who will already be needing school or will be needing a school in a few years' time. And they'll be going to primary school, and then surprise, surprise, they go up and they require secondary school places. And his figures were way above what was being projected by all the computer program that went in to come up with those numbers. So I think this problem is here to stay. So in the short term, somehow, we've got to find some more wriggle room that can take as many people as possible this year, and that has to include St Andrews. And I think if you haven't been there, you really do need to go and see what's going on. I went there before Christmas, and I was really impressed with what Mia's been doing. But for the longer term, to come back to your point, we do need an extra school or a big extra school expansion. 6 years ago, if we'd done that, it would have killed Sir Robert Woodard and a lot of the other schools, because there would have been surplus places all over the place. So it was right 6 years ago to build an extra school would have not have helped the whole school community. We're now approaching the point where we need a serious extra school provision. There are two opportunities: whether there's extra capacity permanently on the Sir Robert Woodard site, or whether that second site, which Jim Coupe referred to earlier, for Middle Road, where Shoreham Academy owned the field there, whether they could build extra capacity there, I think is a possibility as well. When we've sorted this issue, or before we've sorted this issue, as Kevin said, I want to sit down with some serious putting feet to the fire of officers and officials at the County Council, working with the Cabinet members and other, to come up with a serious plan for how we cope with this next year and the following year, 3-4 years out as well. Because I don't want to be coming to these meetings, lovely that I do come into these meetings, we shouldn't be having to do it. You shouldn't be having to go through all the angst. Jade and Amy should not be having to organise meetings like this, and they've done a fantastic job. So that's my promise to you, but we are all seriously pissed off about what has happened, and we'll do everything we can to try and accommodate as many of your kids as possible in schools that they want to go to, and that does include St Andrews, and please do give them a fair wind as well.
That requires investment in public services, which your government has been putting away for several years. So
Okay.
where do you think the investment's going to come from? Because it just hasn't been happening for the past 10 years.
This issue now is not a funding issue, it's a numbers and a poor calculation of numbers. We've got enough places around West Sussex for all the kids at the moment. They're not in the right place. And that is what this issue is about. As part of the developments too, there's the 106 development money, as it's called, planning gain, where there's provision in that for education provision as well. So regardless of what comes in national funding. Sorry, say that again.
The county council aren't allowed to build schools. They require academies to come in to build. So are we going to have conversation with the academies and try and lure them in? I mean, what we're going to do, a sales pitch?
The academies we have here are parts of academy chains, the ones already. Other academies are interested in expanding and coming in as well. It doesn't really matter what sort of school it is. It's about getting the right school provision in the right place, so you've got choice, and all of our kids are going to good schools.
What I'm struggling with is the fact that you're talking about affecting a positive change here for the future, which is marvellous. You know, let's hope that does happen. But actually, you were here 6 years ago, probably saying the same thing, and that positive change hasn't materialised. So how can we trust that you can make that happen?
Okay, so 6 years ago, the issue... 6 years ago, the issue was we had plenty of spaces, just not at the schools that most people wanted to go to, i.e. Shoreham Academy. And it was about spreading those places, and because of the strange nature of Worthing and Ada, pupils have tended to travel further. Now, I think since then that the under-provision and the numbers from the County Council, I think they've got it wrong. That's why I argued very strongly with David Etherington about the need for an extra primary school place. If they try to take surplus provision from Ada primary schools, I will have a big problem with that. They've taken out some Worthing surplus provision because there are some schools that are well undersubscribed, and they needed to do that reorganisation. I don't think that really applies to Ada, because in the next few years, I think the numbers are going to come up considerably. So I don't want to see any reduction in primary school provision here, and I want the County Council to take those numbers absolutely seriously, and it starts by admitting that up to now they've been getting their numbers wrong.
So when this fabulous school, St Andrews, becomes full capacity in a few years, because everyone's deciding to move to Worthing with their families as well from further afield, and all of a sudden BN 43-5 can't get into St Andrews, can't get into Shoreham Academy, can't get into any of the other schools locally. What then?
Well, that's why we need Shoreham Academy and or Sir Robert Woodard to expand, so there's enough provision for that sort of expansion. But you've got to get the figures right. The Section 106 money is ring-fenced and has to go into education provision if that's the part of the Section 106.
How long has that money been there waiting?
So I can have a long conversation about this. Yeah, talk about. I'm very conscious 9 o'clock. People have got kids at home, all that sort of stuff, and I think the issues are very clear. I think the commitments are very, very clear. I think it's going to be very tough for this year. Some of the reasons said. This wiggle room that Tim Houghton talked about, I think that is significant. I don't want to build up anyone's hopes, but there are discussions around the edges about wiggle room. So do appeal, do go for all the schools. Like Stenning, for example, is a class down from what it was last year. It's now a class, so the paper has got a class spare. I did talk to the head today, and he said potentially they could give some more spaces, but if they did, it would be Rock Road, which is Storrington. So that is well, but he might be able to switch some around from the towns. But anyway, so do that. Kevin, one last word from you, and then I'm going to wrap up.
Yes, one last word, but one really important sentence. when you're going through the appeal process, do not say why the school you have got is not suitable for your child. You have to explain the school that you want your child to go, why it is the right one. Okay, so that is only, and that is really, really important that you get that messaging and direction right. So you look at the West Sussex website. You've got the county councillors here. A couple can't make it, but email them, and they will be able to help and advise you on that. Okay, thank you, Al.
And if you want to go through or whatever, do appeal and it's tight, but see what happens. All right, so I think we better wrap up. Thank you for your patience, and it's not a pull the rabbit out of the bag about the night scenario, but we have got some firm commitments. I hope that we can hold into account, and hopefully there'll be some updates. And watch the files page. Thank these two for just being really. Tim, Kevin for coming in, and also thanks to brilliant credits, and also the video people, and everyone, and yourselves, and brilliant patience. Thank you.